Hey everyone, just taking a quick 15 seconds to let you know that my new book, The Fitness Mindset, Eat for Energy, Train for Attention, Manage Your Mindset and Reap the Results, which hit the bestseller list within 24 hours of its release, is now available to buy on Amazon. So if you're looking for everything you need to get into incredible shape and the mindset to keep it forever, be sure to check it out. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
You're listening to the Brian Keane Fitness Podcast, where Irish fitness entrepreneur Brian Keane answers your questions and interviews leaders in the world of fitness, health, mindset, and natural wellness to share tips about all things that can support you on your journey to becoming the best version of yourself and build a bulletproof mindset to get whatever you want out of life. Come join the fun.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Brian Keane Fitness Podcast. We talk everything fitness, nutrition and mindset to help you with your goals. Today's episode is going to be a little bit of a different one because today, the 11th of December, I officially turned 30, so I'm no longer in my 20s. So I got this idea from my friend Pat Divilly, who turned 30 last month, and he put up an Instagram story about the things he learned in his 20s. So I basically messaged Pat and I was like, that's a great idea. And I'm doing this exact same for my podcast. So today's is going to be focused on 5 lessons that I learned over the last 10 years. Very, very different from when I was 20. For those of you who know my background, when I was 20, I was studying my 4th year of a business degree. I was heavy into the party scene, the drinking scene. I was still training, but I had very much largely given over a lot of my life to the party and drinking scene at that stage, and progressively went on, became a primary school teacher over the next 3-4 years, side hustle, became a personal trainer, strength and conditioning coach, and then started up a business in London, moved back to Ireland, and then basically got it off the ground from scratch here. So it's been a pretty busy 10 years in terms of where I started when I turned 20 to now when I'm turning 30. So hopefully you get a lot of value from this episode, regardless of what age you are, whether you're 19, 24, 29, 36. If you're listening to this and they say that the smart people learn from their mistakes and the really sharp ones learn from the mistakes of others, there's a couple of lessons that I learned over the last 10 years that I really wish I could have gone back and told my 20-year-old self. But hopefully listening to this episode will shorten your learning curve, and I hope you get a lot of value from it. So first thing that I've learned over the last 10 years since my 20s is don't take yourself too seriously. And this one's going to sound funny because it's an old cliche that it's like life is short, don't take yourself too seriously, but I'm going to use myself because you're your own best example. There was a period, particularly around the age of 23, 24, 25, when I turned professional as a fitness model and was traveling the world as a competitive bodybuilder, professional fitness model, doing photo shoots here, there and everywhere, and that was very much my life then. I've spoken in the podcast in the past about how I've dealt with my own issues with, comparison being the thief of joy, that I was constantly comparing my physique and my body and the way I looked to that of other people, and it made me miserable. It gave me really, really bad body dysmorphia for that 2-year period. But a lot of it came down from me taking myself way too seriously. And it's funny because if you go back on my social media posts from 4 years ago, even when I started my Facebook page first, I started my Instagram first about 3 years ago, Snapchat about 2 years ago, and back about 4 years ago when I was doing the professional fitness model thing, I took myself very, very seriously. If you scroll back on those photos, you'll see, because I never smiled in any photos. I never made a stupid face in any photos because I was afraid that people would think that I wasn't being serious or they wouldn't take me serious if I wasn't pulling a serious pout face. And it's ironic because I've done a complete 180 on that over the last 2 years. It's now I'm the first one to take the piss out of myself. The ab selfie wanker that I always hashtag if I take an ab selfie is down to just owning the fact that I was once very, very insecure with the way that I looked, insecure with the way that I was, and I took myself way too fucking seriously because I wanted people to think I was a big deal. I wanted people to think that I was successful, and I wanted to make sure that the outside world knew that I was doing good things and doing great things, when the truth is I wasn't content in myself, and I wanted the external world to give me the validation of who I was becoming and that I was going to be a success. And it's ironic because going and trying to get recognition from people on the outside world can make you go through your whole life feeling invisible, because you're not actually stepping away from the crowd, because you just become another mold of somebody else. And I realized that when I was in the fitness model space and I was taking the ab selfies and I wasn't smiling and I wasn't really giving any value to anybody. I was looking for self-validation myself, that I would check how many likes I got in a photo, and if it didn't get enough likes I would take it down. There was loads of different things that I was using as external sources to validate myself, and it all came down from just taking myself too fucking seriously, because at the end of the day, life is short. All these stupid things that we worry about, and I'm only speaking for myself, I would never put words in anybody else's mouth, but all these stupid things that I was worrying about in my 20s, like what would my friends say, what would my family say, what would the people around me say, what if the girl that I fancied, what if she said and she didn't like that photo I put up, or what would the people that I was playing football with, what would they say, would they joke about me, and all these things, they would slag me off, and all these things that I told myself, and they're all stories in my own head that I had taken myself way too seriously in everything that I did. And over the last 10 years, it's something that's been knocked out of me greatly, in the fact that it just doesn't fucking matter. Like, you go and do your thing, and if you make a list of all the things mentally or on a notepad of all the things that make you happy, all the things that make you enjoy life, all the things that make you laugh, and you do these things consistently, you're going to be so much happier than constantly worrying what other people are think. I did a podcast episode not too long ago, which was one of my most downloaded episodes, how to stop caring what people think about you. And a lot of taking yourself too seriously comes from a comparison with other people and caring about what they think. When you switch that button off and realize that it doesn't fucking matter, that the people, when you find your average year 5 people, and I'll speak on that later in the episode, when you know who your important people are, your friends, your family, your mother, your daughter, your whatever relationship you have with other people externally, and they're the important people, their opinion matters. They're the people who it counts. You want to make sure that you're showing up well with them. Everyone outside of it doesn't really care, because they don't really fucking care about you. But if you have a personality type that is constantly worried what other people are thinking of you and judging you, then it's very, very important to realize that taking yourself too seriously is going to make that significantly worse, and is going to make that significantly make you significantly unhappier, speaking as someone that was that person. And over the last 2-3 years, I've been able to knock it out of me, and it's a personality trait now that I can make fun of myself, I can joke about myself, I don't take myself too seriously anymore. I'm not attached to any of my ideas, I'm not attached to the ego of how I felt about things in the past, because when you let go of that, you become way freer, and you intend to enjoy life a lot better. And if I could go back to probably my 24, 25-year-old self, I'd have been like, man, just cop the fuck on. No one gives a shit if you smile or pout for a photo. You know, no one cares if you've got 6 abs or 8 abs, or you're just progressing and you've still got a belly or a tummy that you need to get rid of. No one really cares, because they're focused on themselves. If I could go back, that's the message I'd give. Next one is a little bit tied in with number 1, is nobody really cares what you do, say, or think. And I'm going to flesh this one out, because I know it sounds a little bit funny off the cuff, because we go through our lives thinking that everything we say and everything we do is so important, and the world will end sometimes if we say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because people normally come back at you and they're so focused on what they're doing and they're focused on themselves, and I mean this in a positive light, that they don't fucking care what you're doing. I spoke in a previous podcast episode that there's 3 types of people in your life. There's the people who will hate and be naysayers and tell you can't do something. There's the people who will be your number 1 fans and will support everything you do. And then there's the people who just don't care, and they make up the 90% of it. There's probably 5% of haters, 5% of naysayers, the people that will tell you you can't do something because they're projecting their own insecurities onto you, and then you have the other 5% of people who are your number 1 fans and champion everything that you do, but the other 90% just don't care because they're focused on themselves. And I've been through some trials and tribulations over the last 10 years, particularly some different issues that I had with, particularly as my social media grew and my presence grew, and I went from 400 likes on Facebook 4 years ago to 70, 80,000 likes now, and Instagram, a podcast approaching 1 million downloads, best-selling book, all these external things that look like subjective success if you're using numerical data or numbers as a gauge for success. But as my presence, as my name grew, I started to realize that one of 2 things, the people that had supported me when I was starting first, some of them dropped off pretty quickly and their words got pretty nasty as you start to climb and go what's quote unquote seen as striving to become the best version of you. For whatever reason, they're projecting their own insecurity that they can't go and achieve what they want to achieve, and they'll want to pull you back in the process. And we all know those people that will share our hopes, will share our dreams, will share the things we want to do with them, and they'll be the first one to knock it, or they'll be the first one to have a negative comment. You know, the truth is you can't let other people's opinion become your reality, and there are those 5% of people that when you share it with them, use it, because fool on you if you use it once and they be negative towards you and you keep going back to them, then it's on fucking you. You know those people. It might be your mom, it might be your dad, it might be your brother, it might be your sister, it might be just a friend in your circle who's always knocking everything that you do. If you keep going back to them, then it's your fucking mistake, because you're choosing to divulge the information of the things you want to do knowing they're going to knock it back. By all means, use it as a fire, because fire and those negative comments can really fuel you and can drive. Like I will personally, and again you'll use myself as my own best example, fire is a very, very powerful thing. It can absolutely eat you up and destroy you, or it can light up a whole room. Those negative comments, those people that told you can't do something, those people that are constantly at you trying to knock the thing that you know yourself that you're meant to do in this world, you're letting those words and you're surrounding yourself with them. You can take that fire and you can use it to fuel the thing that you want to do. I have people in my first network who support and champion everything I do. I have people in my immediate family who knock and take me down at every peg and every step, and every time I try and set out a new target or a goal, they're the first ones to knock me back. So I don't spend fucking time with them, because you know they do it once, fool on them. They do it twice, fool on you. So you need to find out who those people are, and then outside of that, realize that nobody cares. Everybody is focused on themselves, focused on changing themselves, changing their body composition, getting their boyfriend or their girlfriend, getting their new car or their new house, getting their new job. People are focused on them. And I was in this bubble when I was probably 22, 23, where I thought the whole world revolved around me, and every decision I made that the world would be impacted. That's not the way the world works. Like, some of the most horrible things that have happened to me in my 20s, some of the best things that have happened to me in my 20s were all on me. The world didn't really fucking change. The world didn't end. Nothing changed, because people are focused on what they're doing. And one of the biggest mistakes I made in my 20s, and it's something that I think I've grown a little bit wiser and a little bit more mature of, is that the 90% of people just don't care what you're doing. They just don't care what you're saying, and they just don't care what you're thinking. The truth is, they may have a little bit of an opinion of it for a sweet moment in time, because you pop up in their Facebook feed or you pop up on their Instagram, and for whatever reason, what you said has triggered a response in them through jealousy or envy or whatever insecurity they have, and it's going to be projected onto you because you put up a picture with your girlfriend and they're like, oh, I don't know how the fuck he got a girlfriend, or whatever that insecurity is that they're projecting onto you. That's on them. They'll have an opinion of it for that moment in time, and then that moment will pass, and then you're going to be left with it, holding on to it and clutching to it and letting it direct direction, or letting it dictate the direction of your life. That's not how life works. People say words. Words can't be unsaid, but they're out there, they say it, and then before you know it, the moment's gone, they've forgotten about it, yet we fucking cling to it. And that's not what happens, and that's not how people really are. They will say a negative word for that moment in time when they see your Instagram photo, or they'll see your Facebook photo, or whatever it is that they do, and then the moment is gone. So you can't hold on to those words. You can't hold on to those opinions like they matter, because they've forgotten about it, so so should you. Okay, the next one is, you're better to have 4 quarters than 100 pennies. And this is something that probably took me later in my 20s to figure out, because I never really understood the difference between quality and quantity, particularly in network and friends and people that I surrounded myself with. And in my early 20s, I had a very, very large network of friends, particularly when I was in the party scene, because you tend to gravitate towards more people in that scene, because just by the nature, you know, you're going out on different nights out and you're organizing it during the week and you're staying connected with those people. And even into my mid-20s, till I left teaching, and I started to whittle down the amount of people that I was spending the majority of my time with. And by all means, I'm very fortunate in the position I'm in now. I have 3 or 4 super close friends who I can turn to in times of need, and them to me. But throughout my early 20s, I didn't understand the difference between quality and quantity. And for those of you who are unsure about how good your friends are, the one question you can ask is, who's got your back? And when you can answer that, you can think of those 2-3 names, they're the friendships you need to double down on. And when I say who's got your back, that's the person that if somebody badmouths you in a crowd, they jump straight on it and they defend you. You're not in the room, but they defend you because you're their bro, or you're their sis, or you're their fam, or you're their whatever, because they're the people that are important. And we all have 2 or 3, and some of us even 4 or 5 to a degree, people who have our back and support everything that we do. I would be very, very wary of the people, and one of the personality traits that I cannot stand, and I have nobody in my immediate circle that has this, is I cannot bear two-facedness as a personality trait. I cannot bear somebody who speaks badly about somebody else and then is nice to their face. That is one of those things that I do not tolerate at all, and I pull people on it instantly if I see it. And if that's mine, so find your non-negotiables out. What are the things that you will not put up with in a friend? Because if that's your non-negotiable, and it's ironic because that was a thing that really bothered me for a lot of my 20s, yet I still used to put up with it with my friends, where they'd bitch to me about another friend that we had, and then they'd be super nice to them, which always made me beg the question, what are you talking about me? Or how are you showing up when I'm not around? Are you bitching and giving out about me when I'm not here? And those questions would penetrate me and make me wonder and question that friendship. Could I really turn to that person if they weren't, truthful in the way that they were showing up with me when they were talking about other friends? So that's my non-negotiable. It's the thing that I can't handle. I had it once with a friend of mine, and I spoke about this in the book. Somebody who I had, through probably fault of my own, brought very, very close to me, thinking that, look, I probably have a friend for life here. And then I started to hear about some of the comments that he had, and he was speaking behind my back to other people. This is when I moved back to Galway first and had built his friendship over about a year. And I cut that friend instantly. It was done overnight. We don't speak anymore. And anytime he tried to open conversation, I was like, look, I heard how you were speaking about me. I have no bad words to say about you, but I don't want to be your friend anymore, and I don't want to have communication with you because I'm not going to be two-faced, so I'm not going to speak to you. And that's a great learning curve, because when that happens and they say your mess becomes your message, and for those people, whatever your non-negotiable are as your friends, it's very, very important that you decide who are the people that have your back, who are the people that are of high quality, and you double down the friendships with those people so that you're not going out and having 100 friends you can't turn to in times of need if you ever need somebody to have your back, and then you. So I would advise, and it's something I would go back particularly to my 25, 26-year-old self, when I was coming out of that party scene and I was starting to build relationships and friendships with new people, and then had a couple of them turn. I would go back and say, look, focus and double down on the people that are the closest to you, that have your back and you're theirs. And it's something that I do now continuously and have done for the last 2 or 3 years, and is one of the major advices and life lessons that I've learned over the last 10 years. Okay, the next one then is one of these dichotomies that I didn't fully understand until I was probably 27, 28, 29 and started to build my own business and be able to scale it to the level that it's at now. And it's that you can have anything you want in life, but you can't have everything you want. And there's a term in economics, it's called an opportunity cost, where you give up one thing for something else. So the whole term in economics is if you have €1, you buy a can of Coke, you can't buy a can of 7-Up because you've spent it on a can of Coke. And there's opportunity costs that pop up in all areas of life. And you can have anything you want, but you can't necessarily have everything you want, particularly within a certain time period. And it's funny because you make sacrifices. I'll use myself because you're your own best example, and I love the Steve Jobs quotes that you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. And in the case of my own life, I realized that you can have anything. With the law of attraction, the cognitive neuroscience, the reticular activation system, hard work, hustle, side hustling, all these things that are ingredients for success long term, they don't lend themselves to having everything you want, but you can have anything you want. When I was 25, I wanted to do fitness modeling. I wanted to leave my career as a personal trainer, or as a teacher, and I wanted to start a personal training business, and I wanted to become a professional fitness model. And as a result, I did make that happen, and I left teaching and I was able to run a successful personal training business to the point that I was able to scale up and bring on trainers, and then I moved my business online to the point of where it's at now with coaches and different people coming through. But as a result of going into the fitness model world and traveling the world as a professional fitness model and competing, it probably took me a little bit longer to scale my business because I was putting my energy and my focus into my fitness modeling career. And a funny thing happened. I did the 2015 Las Vegas World Championships in fitness modeling. It was a pay-per-view show in Las Vegas in the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Las Vegas. Big massive stage on pay-per-view. And I came 8th in that show, which was 8th in the world in terms of the best fitness models in the world. And I left that show realizing that even if I had won and came first, which was the target and the plan, and I put in my book that I lived, and one of the life philosophies that has supported me is becoming the person that you need to become and then waiting for reality to catch up. So I lived, I trained, I ate as if I was number one in the world, and as a result I was able to come top 10. I came 8th, which is probably a place I never would have came had I not lived that way. But I left that show when my priorities had changed. My daughter was about 6 months at the time, and I was very, very tired. One of the things that competing does, and anyone that has done a bodybuilding show or a fitness model or men's physique or bikini or figure, regardless of gender, will tell you is that it's very, very draining on your body, and you get very, very tired for long periods of time. And I was on that path to becoming the #1 fitness model in the world. It was all but happened in reality because I was living that lifestyle. And a weird thing happens when I did that show, and I realized that this isn't what I want anymore. I wanted to have a better relationship with my daughter. I wanted to have more energy, and I wanted to help and serve more people with my business, which is something that suffered because I was so tired and drained when I competed. I would do nothing during the day. I was training 3-4 hours a day. I was doing double cardio sessions. I was eating a calorie deficit. I was abusing fat burners just to get through the day. And my energy levels took a massive hit. My business was steady and was ticking over nicely, but I was tired with my daughter, and when she wasn't sleeping and I wasn't sleeping, I felt on edge all the time. And it was at that moment that I realized that you could have anything you wanted, but you couldn't have everything. I couldn't have the business and help and serve the people to the level I wanted on top of the professional fitness model career long term. I couldn't have the relationship with my daughter where I wanted to be able to show up and have the energy to play with her, and have the professional fitness model career running where my energy levels were slumped. And it was at that moment that I realized that I had to figure out what was important to me. And it was a massive turning point, and I put this in the mindset section of my book, The Fitness Mindset, that it was a massive turning point for me that I realized that the things that I thought were important weren't important. And it's when I stopped competing and decided that I wasn't doing another show, and that I wasn't going to be in that world anymore. I didn't like the person I was becoming. I didn't like the path that I was going down. So I took a step back and came out. And there's a reason that you've probably only followed me for the last 2 years or so, because I changed my entire way of being. I decided I wanted to help and serve more people. I started putting out more content. I started being around my daughter more and being able to have the energy that I wanted to have with her. And as a result, I've been able to have my business. I've been able to have the relationship with her. But on the flip side, I don't have a romantic relationship that's special with somebody, because you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want. And when I'm putting in 15 hours a day, Monday to Friday on work days, trying to get my business, particularly in the beginning, off the ground and scaled up to the point that I have people working for me now and I'm able to delegate tasks better, a romantic relationship suffered as a result, because I didn't put the time and the priority into it. And that's opportunity cost. And that is the fact that you can have anything, but you can't have everything. So it's very, very important that you prioritize the things that are the most important to you, and you start chipping away every single day. Step by step we get ahead, not necessarily in fast spurts. And whatever it is that you want to achieve, whether it's your physique goals, your business goals, your relationship goals, your life goals in general, you can do that. You just may not be able to do all of them at once. So I thought and had this, I don't know, was it a bit of cognitive dissonance or just a belief system that didn't serve me, that I thought I could have it all. And the truth is you can, but you probably have to space it. And if I do this episode again in 10 years when I'm 40, I may have a very, very different answer. But my experience through my 20s was whatever you focus on, and I live by the adage that where focus goes, energy flows. And I do believe in the reticular activation system, that your brain's internal GPS will focus on the things it needs to focus on. The law of attraction, if that's your belief system within the universe, whatever it is that you believe and you work for, I believe that if you put in the hard work and you show up, and luck is when preparation and opportunity meet and collide. And when you do that, you can have whatever it is you want, but you may not necessarily be able to have it all at once. So one of the pieces of advice that life lessons I've learned over the last 10 years is that regardless of how big the goal is, and aim for the moon and hit the stars, I believe in setting big massive goals and trying to achieve great things, and whatever that is for you. And it's relative. For you, that might be dropping a few dress sizes, that might be spending more time with your kids, that might be finally leaving your job and doing something you love. Whatever that looks like for you, realize that you can do it, but there is a price and there is an opportunity cost for that. If you want to get your side hustle off the ground and you want to work 9 to 5 and then come home and work another 5-6 hours to get your personal training business off the ground, your time with your partner, with your kids may suffer. So you got to ask, what's the most important thing for you? Right now, for me, it's scaling my business and spending time with my daughter and my mum as well, and spending that quality time with the people that are the most important to me, and building and helping and serving more people in my business and building up my brand as a result. They're the priorities for me right now. They may change in a year's time, they may change in 5 years' time, and then you come back and you reevaluate it. But the truth is, understanding that whatever it is that you want to achieve, you can have that. You just may not be able to have it all at once. Okay, and the last one then came from reading a book by Ryan Holiday, which was called Ego is the Enemy. And this is one that I really, really struggled with myself, particularly even when I read that book, because I had this non-serving belief system that ego was a good thing, and that ego and confidence were the same thing, and they're not inherently the same thing at all. And ego is when you are making bad decisions and making decisions based out of a place where you think you're more important than you are, and confidence is just having the faith and knowing that if you put in the work, you're going to get the end result. They're two very different things. And I would have had a little bit of a brashness and a cockiness in my early 20s. I had this into my mid-20s, and it would come and go depending on what I achieved at that moment in time. If I had set a goal that I thought was making me successful, or in my eyes, quote unquote, from the outside world was successful, I would get a little bit of ego attached with it and would think, oh, look what I did, this is amazing, this is great, and I would build myself up as a result. And it's funny because the rise comes before the fall, and every time that I've ever let ego build up and I've attached myself to an external thing that I thought would make me important, happy, or successful, was always when I set myself up to failure straight away. Because as a result, you have in your brain what's called a commitment bias. It's one of the cognitive biases, or system 1s or system 2s, where your brain automatically goes to a commitment. It's kind of like when the example I use is, if you've ever watched a terrible movie and you're like, oh, this movie's terrible, and you know 40 minutes in, but you're like, you know what, I gotta watch it and see what happens. That's your commitment bias kicking in. And we have that in ourselves when we say we're going to do or achieve something. And what was happening with me was I was tying what I was saying into my self-worth and into my ego, and then when I didn't achieve it, I would have this commitment bias that would kick in and be like, well, I said I was going to do this and I didn't, and then as a result my self-worth would drop. So my example was, that I spoke earlier, was my fitness model. I thought, and if you had told me at 24, 25, when I started that road first, I said that I was going to be number one in that world, and I was going to be one of the top guys, and I was going to be known all around the country and all around the world as the top fitness model. Which is funny, because since I stepped away from that, I probably had more reach than I ever had when I was competing or when I was traveling and shooting fitness model shoots, doing magazines, things like that. But I had this commitment in my head that when I stopped and decided that I wasn't competing anymore, for probably a 6-month period, I felt I'd lost all my self-worth because I said I was going to achieve something and I didn't do it. And it was funny because I had Paul, who's one of my closest friends and one of my 5 people. He's Paul and Orla on Instagram. He came through my mentorship program, very, very successful personal trainer in Galway now. And I remember he told me, he was like, well, what would happen if you did get number one and you were the top guy? He was like, what would you have to do? What would you have to use? How would you have to live? And it was one of those, and I put this in my book, that I had that moment of clarity and that vision of the person I would have to become, and lying on a couch, not being able to play with my daughter because I was too tired, because I was prepping for another world competition. And that's when it changed. And I realized that it was ego that was making that decision. Just because I said I was going to do it, and I was letting the commitment bias kick in when it wasn't my true path, and it wasn't where my internal compass was going, I was only sticking to it because I said I was going to do it. I'd written it down, and I was letting the commitment bias kick in. So one of the things that I would offer for anybody listening here, and this one's really for me, is every time you have a commitment bias for something, you said you're going to do something and you're unwilling to move off the path and change direction or pivot because you committed to it, doesn't necessarily mean that that was the right path for you. And by all means, confidence comes from saying you're going to do something and achieving it. But when you know deep down, and I knew deep down myself that it wasn't my path, it wasn't what I wanted to do, but I told myself that I said I was going to do it, so I have to go and achieve it. And that's when you're letting ego get in the way. And when you let ego dictate the direction that you take, and you let your ego, because you said you were going to do something, or you told your mom, you told your dad, or you told your partner you were going to achieve something, when you know deep down it's not really for you, then that's where misery comes from. And I was in this wallow, and again, it's funny because you can't see the forest amongst the trees at times, and I was falling into this slight depression of, what am I going to do now? I said I was going to do this thing. I said I was going to be the top fitness guy in the world, and I didn't do that. But then when I took a step out of it, I realized that I wasn't helping anybody. Like me doing 4 hours of training a day and doing 2 hours of cardio and eating my meals when I have no energy to talk to anybody, that's not helping anybody. And my end path, and I knew that the end goal was I wanted to help and serve more people, and I thought it was looking a certain way. I thought that by doing my thing and looking a certain way that it would help and inspire more people. And by all means, there's fitness people out there that will do that. You will look at someone on Instagram or on Facebook, and depending on how you feel that particular moment on that day, you'll feel inspired by the way they look, and you'll want to go and train, and you want to go and feel good about yourself because you want to try and strive and achieve to become the best version of you, like the person that you saw on Instagram. But for me, it wasn't my path. It was me, it was making videos, it was making podcasts, it was talking to people, it was creating programs that people could come through and help them directly, working with my GA players, working with my top 50 people. I realized that had changed, and it got skewed up and mixed up in the fact that I was letting ego decide what direction I took my life. So one of the things, and as I said, this one is very much for me, is I would go back to 26, 27 when I came out of that space and realize that when you're attached, and I put this in a vlog recently, that anytime people don't like what I do, or you do like what I do in a vlog, in a podcast, in a video, I'm like, tell me, because I'm not attached to how I come across. I'm not attached to any idea that I have. You know, if you dislike it or you like it or love it or hate it, I'm not attached to that. And by all means, constructive criticism is the best one you can receive. But there was a time when I was attached to everything because my ego was taking a hit. If somebody had a negative comment towards me, my ego was taking a hit if I didn't fulfill something I said I was going to do. And I realized then that ego is the enemy. And rereading Ryan Holiday's book, it took me actually a second attempt before I was able to get the message that when you make decisions out of ego and you come from that place, you're setting yourself up to fail before you've even started, because you're going to commit all the way through, even if you feel that it's not the right path for you halfway through. Okay, so that's today's episode. 5 lessons I've learned from my 20s to my 30s. This is really one that I just spoke on. There's not going to be a lot of editing in this. It was just kind of a ramble and more of a thought. I haven't had a coffee or anything today. I just wanted to kind of press play and talk in the hopes that there's some value there. So again, a little bit of a different structure, not so much a Q&A, not so much a topic, not so much even a mindset episode as such. It's more kind of me just talking my own thoughts, and I know this is one that I'll listen back on in probably a year's time, 2 years time, and just see if I can reevaluate and take any message I need. So I hope from listening to it today, regardless of what stage you're at in your life, or where you are and what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to do, that some of the messages or something in it will land, and hopefully it's provided you with a lot of value. If it has, be sure to hit me up on Snapchat, BrianK019, my DM on Instagram, or even comment underneath the picture on Instagram. Be sure to let me know how you found it, loved it, hated it, got value. I love hearing the comments back from people. So a massive thank you for listening. That is the end of today's episode. So officially my birthday. I am in New York as you're listening to this. If you're listening to this the first week, so be sure to check out my Snapchat and my Instagram DM for my whole time in New York for the week. So thank you for listening. Catch you all soon.